I know you mentioned the freedoms we get here as journalists in America, but how did you recover as a journalist and as a person after such a tragic event?
It was pretty hard because Dean talked a little bit about white torture. I wasn't physically tortured in prison, but there is something called white torture, which doesn't leave a mark on your body. It can really devastate your mind and your conscience, and the captors there are really, really good at inflicting it. I don't know what kind of training you get to do that, but they were good at it. And that's not to say that physical torture doesn't happen there, because it does. But I was not physically tortured, and I don't know how they decide who gets tortured and not. But it's a combination of putting you in isolation and threatening you, making threats against you, and making you do and say things that are aimed at robbing you of your dignity. You're pressured to talk about your friends. You're pressured to say, I mean, even like little things like, oh, we know you went to so-and-so's birthday. What did you get them as a present? Oh, we know what you ate for dinner. And then you think, well, do they know everything that you did? And then they'll say, we know you ate chicken sandwiches, so you're not telling us this other thing we know. And if you're not telling us, then we're not going to get you freed. They play all these mind games with you. And then the false confession, I didn't really tell that part of the story, so I made a false confession and said my book was a cover for espionage for the CIA, because I was very afraid. And they said, okay, we're going to free you. And I remember that I went back to my cell and I thought, well, they say they're going to free me, but even my body will be free, my conscience will always remain behind bars, because I've told these terrible lies and I've implicated some innocent person, in America, far, far away from Iran. But still, if this ever gets out there, and I had to say it on video, like 5 times because they wanted me to look natural and I didn't want to look natural. If it ever gets out there, it'd be really bad for this person, and it's bad for U.S.-Iran relations, and bad for lots of things, and it's a bunch of lies, and I've done it just so I can be free. It's just for myself. It was very selfish, and that's not the way my parents raised me, But then I met other women in prison, other cellmates, and they gave me a lot of courage. And they told me we were pressured also to make false statements, and we were told we could be free if we did make these confessions, but we decided we'd rather stay in prison and do what we think is right than to be freed after telling lies. And then I realized that no matter how bad the situation we might be in is, because we're all in bad situations sometimes, that if we stay true to our principles, that the right path will appear, and that might be the hardest path to take, but it is the surest path to real freedom, which is the freedom of your conscience. And I didn't have that freedom. So I took back the false confession, and my captors were really mad, and they sentenced me to 8 years in prison, even though in private my interrogator was like, we knew it was false, but they still sentenced me. And I think that whole journey, although it strengthened me, it also was very difficult for me to deal with when I came out. And part of what helped me was writing about it. I don't know if you guys like to write, but just keeping a journal is really soothing. And then writing the book and talking about it, because I felt like I'm really lucky. I have cellmates who are still there and other people who are imprisoned after me, a lot of journalists. Iran's now the 3rd largest jail for journalists in the world, according to Reporters Without Borders. And I can talk about it. But people who are in prison or people who are freed and still in Iran can't talk about it freely. So I have this opportunity and responsibility, and that helped me. But I have to say I also went to therapy, and I was diagnosed with a form of PTSD, and it was kind of difficult because it's hard to find a psychologist who could totally relate, because none of them here has been in jail in Iran. So, but they were all, I think, combined. I went to like 3 or 4 or 5 different ones. They did a great job together, and with the passage of time, and just this, I think, new feeling of gratitude. I feel I'm actually quite happy now, and people are surprised if I'm ever in a bad mood. So I don't know what the deal is, but it's made me, I think, really grateful, as I was mentioning earlier, and happy to be healthy and loved and free, and I've got lots of problems, but I also feel very lucky.